By the late 13th century, the dream of a Christian kingdom in the Holy Land had collapsed. For nearly 2 centuries, Crusader armies had carved out fragile outposts in foreign lands, defended by the sword, the cross, and the unwavering conviction of orders like the Knights Templar. But now, that world was ending. The Mamluks, a fierce warrior dynasty from Egypt, rose with unstoppable force. Under leaders like Baibars, Kalawun, and Al-Ashraf Khalil, they dismantled the Crusader states piece by piece, crushing the once mighty Christian strongholds. In 1291, Acre fell in a final catastrophic siege. Thousands died. The Templars who survived retreated to Cyprus, their mission shattered. No serious crusade would return. The defense of the Holy Land, the very reason the Templars existed, was over. On Cyprus, the Templars tried to rebuild. From Limassol, they maintained ships, moved funds, and proposed new campaigns. But Europe no longer listened. The spiritual justification for their power had vanished. Questions echoed across Christendom. Why had the Holy Land fallen? Had God abandoned them? Should warrior monks still receive donations if there were no battles left to fight? Meanwhile, the crusading ideal itself was twisting. No longer aimed at Jerusalem, crusades now targeted Christian heretics and political enemies. The Templars, bound to the old vision, seemed out of step with a changing world. Their independence, wealth, and secrecy began to draw suspicion. Monarchs grew resentful. Popes turned distant. Once seen as heroes of Christendom, the Templars now stood alone, untethered, misunderstood, and vulnerable. By the early 1300s, they still held lands, ships, and gold. But without a holy war to justify them, they had become a kingdom within kingdoms. And kingdoms have enemies. The final blow would not come from the east, but from within the heart of Europe. It would begin with coordinated arrests at dawn on a Friday the 13th. With the fall of the Crusader states, the Knights Templar lost their battlefield purpose, but their empire of land, wealth, and privilege remained. No longer seen as protectors of the Holy Land, they had become something more unsettling, a powerful, independent institution operating across Christendom, beyond the reach of kings. By 1300, the Templars controlled vast estates, fortresses, ports, and treasuries. They lent to kings, advised nobles, and stored fortunes beneath their commanderies. They answered to no crown, only the Pope. And that made them dangerous. King Philip IV of France, called Philip the Fair, owed them a fortune. He had borrowed heavily to fund wars, crush dissent, and manipulate the papacy. But now, with coffers drained and his enemies weakened, Philip's gaze turned toward the one group he could not control: the Templars. In their wealth, he saw salvation. In their independence, he saw insubordination. Rumors already circled, whispers of arrogance, heresy, secret rites, and forbidden worship. No proof, no trials, just fear and opportunity. Philip began to prepare. He controlled the French clergy. He had relocated the papacy to Avignon. He had turned the Inquisition into a political weapon. All he needed was a spark. In 1306, Templar Grand Master Jacques de Molay arrived in Paris, at Philip's invitation. They spoke of crusades, alliances, duty. What de Molay didn't know was that he was walking into a trap. The following year, the king struck. October 13th, 1307, a Friday. The Order of the Temple was about to be crushed, not by enemy swords, but by royal ink and whispered lies. The fall of the Knights Templar did not come from battle. It came from betrayal. King Philip V of France, burdened by debt and consumed by power, saw in the Templars not allies, but obstacles. In 1307, he made his move, not with swords, but with parchment, secrecy, and terror. It wasn't a trial, it was a purge. a silent coup disguised as justice. Early that year, Philip set his plot in motion. Secret arrest warrants, fabricated charges, heresy, blasphemy, idolatry, sodomy. A full assault on the character of an entire order. The plan: strike fast, strike everywhere, seize everything. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, before the sun rose, the trap was sprung. Templars were arrested across France. Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Order, was seized in Paris, betrayed during a royal funeral he had attended by invitation. The vaults of the temple were sealed. The Brotherhood, caught unarmed and unaware, fell without a fight. Under torture, the confessions came. Confessions of spitting on crosses, worshipping idols, denying Christ. Lies born of agony, used to smear the Templars in the eyes of Christendom. Even de Molay, under unbearable pressure, broke, but only temporarily. Philip's campaign continued. Preachers spread the word. Decrees praised the king's courage. Trials were staged for spectacle. The Pope, Clement V, shocked and politically cornered, gave in. Philip had control. Other rulers hesitated. England, Aragon, Portugal. But the machinery was already grinding forward. The charge had been made. The world's most powerful order was now branded as heretics, and this was only the beginning. The dawn raids of October 13th, 1307 were only the beginning. What followed was not justice, but punishment. The Knights Templar, once revered as defenders of the faith, now found themselves branded as heretics and traitors. Their trial did not unfold in a court of truth. It unraveled in chains, cells, and flames. In France, under King Philip IV's direct command, a brutal inquisition began. Guillaume de Nogaret, the king's legal architect, orchestrated a campaign of torture to extract confessions from men sworn to silence. The strappado, the rack, endless darkness, hunger, pain. One by one, confessions were forced. Men admitted to spitting on crosses, denying Christ, worshipping idols in the shape of a head or beast. But the stories contradicted each other. The charges shifted. The truth faded into the flickering shadows of the dungeon walls. Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, broke and then recanted. So did Geoffroy de Charnay. Their strength would cost them dearly. Pope Clement V, stunned by Philip's aggression, tried to reclaim control. He summoned his own inquiry, Faciens Misericordiam. In Avignon, surrounded by French pressure, he wavered. He absolved the leaders in secret, as the Chinon parchment would one day reveal, but he said nothing publicly. Silence under fear became complicity. In 1310, Philip made his example. 54 Templars, who refused to reaffirm their tortured confessions, were burned alive outside Paris. The smoke rose. The message was clear. Across Europe, trials played out with less cruelty. Many Templars were acquitted. Others were absorbed quietly into other lives. But in France, the heart of the conspiracy, the order was already broken. The battlefield had been replaced by the tribunal, the sword by the chain. The crusading Brotherhood of Christ had become victims of a darker crusade, one waged not by Saracens, but by the hands of their own kings. As Templars wasted away in prisons, their fate no longer lay in their own hands. It rested in the hands of a pope under siege. Pope Clement V had absolved the order's leaders in secret, but surrounded by threats and royal power, he could not, or would not, defend them publicly. In 1311, Clement convened the Council of Vienne to resolve the question once and for all. Bishops, cardinals, and envoys from across Christendom gathered in heated debate. Some urged reform, others demanded dissolution. A few dared speak in defense of the Templars, but truth was not the only force in the council chamber. King Philip IV of France arrived nearby with his army, a silent but unmistakable threat. The message was clear: act or face division. On March 22, 1312, Pope Clement issued the Bull Vox in Excelso. With a sad heart, he wrote, not by judicial sentence, but by apostolic provision. The order of the temple was suppressed. No guilt, no heresy, just suspicion and scandal. The Templars were dissolved, not by justice, but by fear. Their properties were ordered transferred to the Hospitallers, though in many places, local rulers kept the spoils. Some knights were sent to monasteries. Others faded into silence. In France, they burned. Across Europe, reactions varied. In England, King Edward II hesitated, but eventually complied. In Portugal, the Order of Christ emerged. In Aragon, the Order of Montesa rose. In Germany and Hungary, investigations dismissed the charges entirely. But in France, the purge was total. Philip had gotten what he wanted. Clement V, lawyer, diplomat, pope, had tried to preserve the church's unity. In doing so, he buried the truth. His absolution of the Templars, recorded in the Chinon parchment, remained hidden. He died in 1314, shortly after condemning the order's last leaders. The order of the temple was gone, their lands divided, their names disgraced, their story silenced. And yet, it was not quite the end. March 18th, 1314. On the banks of the Seine River in Paris, as the shadow of Notre Dame stretches across the water, the final chapter of the Knights Templar is written, not in ink, but in fire. Jacques de Molay, last Grand Master of the Order, has spent nearly 7 years in chains, tortured, isolated, forgotten by the world he once helped defend. Alongside him stands Geoffroy de Charnay, preceptor of Normandy. That morning, a royal tribunal gathers. Their verdict is already written. The two men are expected to bow their heads, accept life imprisonment, and vanish into history. But then, defiance. Molay rises and speaks. I am not guilty of these crimes. I have betrayed my brothers and myself out of fear. I now declare the truth. Charney echoes his words. The court freezes in disbelief. Philip IV, watching from afar, is incensed. There will be no appeals, no further trials. He orders them burned alive, immediately. That same day, the two Templars are led to a small island in the Seine, the Ile des Juifs, where the pyres await. Molay asks to face the cathedral. He clasps his hands in prayer. As the flames rise, he makes one final declaration. God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Before the year is out, God will summon you to his judgment. Within a month, Pope Clement V is dead. By year's end, Philip IV follows. In time, his sons will die without heirs, and France will fall into chaos. Whether curse or coincidence, the legend is born. Jacques de Molay does not scream. He does not beg. He dies with dignity, with silence, with truth. And in doing so, he transforms from prisoner to martyr, from condemned heretic to immortal legend.